mega taxes.
Let's talk asylum seekers for the moment. Maxine McHugh, Chris Evans, the Immigration Minister, says that the fact that a group of asylum seekers were brought to the mainland at the weekend doesn't change their offshore arrival status in the legal system when it comes to immigration detention. The Prime Minister says he makes no apology for sending these people home because they didn't meet the criteria, the asylum refugee status. He's certainly using a lot of strong rhetoric in this debate again, isn't he, the Prime Minister?
Well, I think we're seeing the proof that, in fact, the arrangements that Senator Chris Evans has put in place are, in fact, working. The Prime Minister is right. If people do not meet the appropriate criteria to be accepted as refugees, then that judgment will be made and people will be sent home. Now, in this case, there have been 89 people whose claims for asylum have been rejected. The decision has been made to move them to Villawood. As Chris Evans said, they clearly are unhappy about that decision, so he thinks it's wise to separate them from those whose claims are still being processed, and that's how the system will work. Those people will be sent home.
But they still do, Maxine, they still do have one avenue of legal appeal, an independent appeal mechanism. Simon Mann, who is the lawyer for a group of these asylum seekers, is questioning whether or not it's appropriate for the Prime Minister to be commenting when these legal avenues are still there.
No, I think the Prime Minister is being absolutely clear about what our policy is, that we have a process in place, but if people's claims are not satisfactory, if they do not meet the criteria for being accepted as refugees, then they will be required to go home to their country of origin.
Okay, Mitch Fifield, is your side of politics, Scott Morrison, the spokesman, whipping up a fear campaign here? You're describing Christmas Island as a visa factory, but these people, as Maxine pointed out there, are being sent home, no visas in hand.
Well, we're not running a fear campaign, we're running a fact campaign, and the facts are...
But Mitch, 90 people moved to the mainland at the weekend, and that prompted a claim that it's a visa factory. How does that work?
Well, this government, through its actions, through changing its policy in August 2008, has created a good product for people smugglers to sell. Created a good product for people smugglers to say that we can help you achieve migration outcomes. As a result of those policies, we've seen since August 2008, 100, close to 100, 98 boats at the moment, but very shortly 100 people smuggler boats come to our part of the world. Over 4,400 asylum seekers come to our shores, and that is a 29% increase just last year, a 29% increase on the number of asylum seeker applications.
Now, we're talking about two different things here, Mitch. We're talking about this claim at the weekend that Christmas Island is a visa factory. The group of people, 89 of them, moved to Villawood, are being sent home. How do they correlate the claim made by Scott Morrison and what's actually happening?
Those 89 people aren't being sent home. If they were being sent home, they would be on the way home now. The processing of those people has not been completed. We don't know if, as a result of those 89 people being brought to Villawood, if that opens up new legal avenues, new legal opportunities for those individuals. I thought it was quite extraordinary, Chris Evans saying earlier today that if that turned out to be the case, that would in fact be the fault of the previous government, would be the fault of the previous government's legislation. Yet it's this government that's changed its policy, it's this government that's changed its processes, and Chris Evans is saying that somehow if a new legal avenue is opened up, it's the fault of the previous government. Chris used a very interesting phrase this morning. He said that these people were on a removal pathway. That's the new language for when you're taking people from Christmas Island to the Australian mainland. That's a removal pathway. It's not that they're coming to the Australian mainland, it's a removal pathway apparently. They're not on their way home, they're still going through processes, and we don't know if as a result of bringing them to Australia, new avenues of appeal will be opened up.
Well, the bottom line is there aren't any international flights out of Christmas Island, so the people have to be brought here to be put on international flights. But we'll move on.
They should be flying out today, but the reality is they're not on their way home. If they were, they'd be at the airport transit lounge now.
Okay, Maxine McHugh. Chris Evans says, we don't expect the boats to stop any time in the near future. That's what he was quoted as saying this morning. But to any observer, that's just obvious, isn't it? It looks almost inevitable that these boats, the steady flow of boats, will continue throughout this election year. How much of a difficulty is it for you politically?
Well, when I look at how Chris Evans is handling this portfolio, Kieran, I'm very glad it's Chris Evans in this job and not the previous opposition incumbents. I have to say, I think it was.
It could be Peter Garrett.
I think it was one of the saddest periods in Australian history that we went through, if you like, in the last 10 years, where we saw the hysteria of the opposition around this issue of boat people. Now, if you want to go right back, we are all boat people. Now, what we have in the last 6 months or so is an increase in violence in source countries. That has led to a spike around the world. I think last year it was something like 377,000 claims for asylum. You know, Australia had 2% of those claims. 2% of 377,000. Let's keep this issue in perspective. And I think that's what Senator Chris Evans is doing.
Okay, it's time for a quick break on AM Agenda. Stay with us. We'll be right back.